The rich CEO protected a little girl from a mean biker who took her toy bear. One evening, a little girl named Emily was standing outside a bakery. She held a small toy bear tightly in her arms. It was her favorite toy and the only thing that gave her comfort. A biker gang arrived. Their leader, Rex, was a rough man who loved to bully others. He saw Emily with the bear and laughed. "That's a cute toy. Hand it over," Rex said. Emily shook her head. "No. It's mine." Rex stepped closer, grabbed the toy bear and pulled it from her hands. Emily cried and tried to get it back, but Rex pushed her away. People on the street watched, but no one had the courage to stop him. Just then, a black luxury car stopped nearby. A tall man in a suit stepped out. He was Alexander Grant, the richest CEO in the city. People recognized him, but no one expected him to interfere. Alexander saw the little girl crying. He walked straight to Rex and said in a calm but strong voice, "Give the girl her bear." Rex laughed. "Why should I? Who are you to order me?" Alexander's eyes were sharp. "I won't repeat myself. Give it back." The crowd fell silent. Rex looked at Alexander, trying to act brave, but he felt uneasy. He knew this was not an ordinary man. Still, he tried to show power. "What if I don't?" Alexander stepped closer. "Then you'll regret it." Rex glared, then finally threw the toy bear on the ground. "Take it. It's useless anyway." Emily rushed forward, picked up the bear, and hugged it tightly. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of relief. Alexander bent down, dusted the toy, and gave it back to her properly. "It's safe now. Don't cry." "Thank you, sir," Emily whispered. Alexander smiled faintly. "Always protect what matters to you." Rex cursed under his breath, but Alexander turned to him with a cold warning. "If you ever touch a child again, you won't walk away so easily." Rex didn't reply. He signaled his gang, and they drove away. The people on the street began whispering. They had just seen something unexpected: the richest CEO in the city protecting a little girl from a mean biker. Emily looked up at Alexander. "You're like a hero." For a moment, Alexander's hard face softened. "Sometimes heroes just do the right thing," he said. Emily smiled through her tears and hugged her bear. She would never forget the man who stood up for her that evening. And Alexander didn't know it yet. But saving this little girl was only the beginning of a story that would change his life too. Emily was still holding her bear when Alexander turned to leave. She looked at him with wide eyes and asked softly, "Will I see you again?" Alexander paused. He was not used to such questions. For years people only wanted business deals or money from him, never something this innocent. He gave a short nod. "Maybe." She smiled and hugged her bear tighter. That small smile stayed with him as he got back into his car. The next day, Alexander tried to focus on work, but Emily's face kept returning to his mind. In meetings, while others talked about profits and contracts, he remembered the little girl who had called him a hero. It felt strange. But for the first time in a long while, he wanted to see someone again, not for business, but simply because it felt right. That evening, instead of going home, he asked his driver to stop near the bakery street. Emily was there again, waiting for her father. When she saw Alexander, her face lit up. "Mr. Alexander," she called out. He walked toward her. "Emily, are you all right today?" She nodded. "Yes. Daddy said the bad man won't come again. But I was still scared last night." "You were very brave," Alexander said. "Holding on to what you love, that takes strength." Emily's smile grew. "You think I'm strong. I know you are," he answered. Her father, David, came out of the bakery and was surprised to see Alexander again. "Sir, you returned." Alexander gave a small nod. "Just wanted to check if everything is fine." David looked at him with respect. "We are safe now because of you. Emily talks about you like you're a hero from her storybooks." Alexander glanced at Emily, who was giggling softly. For a man who had lived surrounded by cold offices and hard negotiations, this warmth felt unusual, yet comforting. But peace didn't last long. The sound of motorcycles suddenly echoed on the street. Rex and his gang were back. Emily froze in fear, clutching her bear. Rex smirked when he saw Alexander. "So the rich man is here again. Last night you made me look weak. Tonight I'll make you pay." Alexander stepped forward calmly. "I warned you already. Walk away." Rex laughed. "You think money makes you powerful. Let's see how strong you really are. The gang surrounded them. People quickly shut their doors and windows. Emily clung to her father's leg, whispering, "Daddy, I'm scared." Alexander's voice was steady. "Don't worry. He won't hurt you." Rex threw the first punch, but Alexander blocked it smoothly and struck back. His movements were sharp and controlled. One by one, the bikers tried to attack, but Alexander fought them off with precision. Within minutes, the gang was lying on the ground, defeated. Rex staggered up, his pride broken. Alexander's voice was cold and final. "If you come near this girl again, you won't just face me. You'll face the law." Rex cursed under his breath but didn't dare stay. He and his gang fled. Emily ran to Alexander and hugged him tightly. "You saved us again." Alexander bent down and said quietly, "You're safe now. Don't cry." David's eyes filled with gratitude. "Sir, you didn't have to risk yourself for us. But you did. That means more than I can ever say." Alexander looked at them both. For years he had lived for nothing but wealth and power. But standing there, with Emily holding her bear and calling him her hero, he realized something had changed inside him. This was no longer just about a toy bear. It was about protecting something far greater. Innocence, hope, and the small light that still existed in a dark world. And deep inside, Alexander knew this was only the beginning. That night, Alexander could not sleep. He sat by the window of his penthouse, staring at the city lights below. For years, his life had been about numbers, contracts, and battles inside boardrooms. But now, his thoughts were not on business. They were on Emily. The little girl who had hugged her bear and called him a hero. He had faced rivals worth billions, but nothing had ever shaken his heart like the trust in that child's eyes. The next morning, Alexander reached his office earlier than usual. His assistant, Laura, entered with a pile of documents. "Sir, the investors are waiting for your decision on the new project." Alexander glanced at the papers but said quietly, "Cancel my evening schedule." Laura blinked. "Cancel, sir. But you have a dinner with the mayor." "Cancel everything," Alexander repeated firmly. Laura hesitated but obeyed. She had worked with him for years and had never seen him distracted like this. Something had changed, and she could feel it. That evening, Alexander returned to the bakery street. Emily was sitting outside again, swinging her legs as she waited for her father. When she spotted him, her face brightened. "Mr. Alexander," she shouted happily. He walked over, feeling something warm inside. "Emily, how are you today?" She held up her bear proudly. "Safe and happy." Alexander smiled faintly. "That's good." She patted the bench beside her. "Sit with me." Alexander sat down, and Emily leaned closer. "You know what I told my daddy yesterday? I said you're my real-life superhero." Alexander chuckled softly. "Superheroes wear capes. I only wear suits. But you fight bad guys," Emily said seriously. "And you make me feel safe. That's what superheroes do." Her words made him silent. He was a man feared by businessmen, respected by politicians, envied by rivals. But for the first time, he was called something he had never been before: safe. David came out, wiping his hands after work. He smiled when he saw his daughter sitting comfortably with Alexander. "Sir, you've come again." Alexander nodded. "Just wanted to make sure she's safe." David sat beside them, his voice calm but heavy. "I don't know why you care, but thank you. Since my wife passed, Emily has been my whole world. She has very little. But she holds on to that bear because it's the last gift from her mother." Alexander looked at the bear more closely. Its fur was torn in places, and one button eye was loose, but Emily hugged it as if it were priceless. He understood now. It was not just a toy. It was memory, love, and comfort. David sighed. "Life has been hard, but Emily never complains. She's stronger than me sometimes." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked softly, "What do you dream for her future?" David smiled faintly. "I want her to study, to grow up safe, to have chances I could never give. But dreams are expensive. And my pockets are not." Alexander listened carefully. He had built empires, yet he realized he had never thought about such simple, pure dreams. Their moment was interrupted when a man ran up to David. He was a shop owner nearby. "David! Trouble again. That biker gang, Rex and his men, they're asking for protection money. If we don't pay, they'll destroy our shops." David's face tightened. Not again. Emily clutched her bear, fear returning to her eyes. Daddy, they'll come back. Alexander stood slowly, his presence suddenly sharper. Where are they? The shopkeeper pointed down the street. They're gathering at the corner. Alexander looked at David. Stay with Emily. David tried to protest. Sir, it's dangerous. But Alexander's voice was firm. Danger is not new to me. He walked down the street alone, his steps steady, his eyes locked on Rex and his gang. They were laughing, smoking, and threatening shopkeepers. When they saw Alexander, Rex's smile faded. You again? Rex growled. Didn't I warn you to stay out of this? Alexander's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of authority. This street is under my protection now. You won't touch these people again. The gang laughed, but Rex's eyes narrowed. You think you own everything because you're rich. This isn't your boardroom. Alexander stepped closer. Strength isn't about money. It's about responsibility. And I will not let you harm them. Rex tried to punch him, but Alexander blocked it easily, grabbed his jacket, and slammed him against a wall. The gang charged. But Alexander fought them off with controlled precision. The crowd gathered, cheering as the powerful men who had terrorized them were thrown to the ground one by one. Finally, Alexander pulled out his phone, called the police directly, and gave his name. Within minutes, police cars arrived. No one in the city ignored Alexander Grant's call. Rex and his men were handcuffed and dragged into custody. Rex shouted threats, but his voice was drowned by the cheers of the people. When Alexander returned to Emily and David, Emily's eyes were shining with admiration. You did it again. You're the bravest man I know. Alexander knelt in front of her. No, Emily. The bravest person here is you. You faced fear and didn't give up on what mattered to you. Emily hugged her bear and whispered. But I couldn't have done it without you. David's voice trembled as he spoke. Sir, I don't know why you risk yourself for us. But I see now, you're not just a businessman. You're a protector. For a long moment, Alexander was silent. He had always defined himself by wealth, by deals, by power. But standing there, with Emily's small arms wrapped around him, he realized something new. For the first time in years, he felt human. And deep inside, he knew his life was no longer his alone. It was tied to the little girl who believed in him, and to the promise he had silently made. To protect her, no matter what. Alexander drove in silence, his grip firm on the steering wheel. Beside him, Lily hugged her toy bear tightly, her small fingers trembling every now and then. The glow of the streetlights passed across her face, showing the mix of fear and relief in her eyes. For years Alexander had been surrounded by wealth, boardrooms, and powerful men, but in that moment all that faded. All he cared about was the little girl sitting next to him. Are you okay? Alexander asked quietly. His voice was softer than usual, stripped of the authority it carried in his office. Lily nodded, though her voice wavered. Yes, because you saved me. Her words pierced through him more than any contract or business success ever had. He had been called a savior of companies, a man who rescued collapsing empires. But tonight, those titles meant nothing. Tonight, he was simply a man who had protected a child. He glanced at her again. You must be hungry. Let's get you something to eat. They stopped at a small diner at the corner of the street. It wasn't the kind of place Alexander usually visited, but it felt right. He wanted Lily to feel safe, not overwhelmed. They walked in, and the waitress, an older woman with tired but kind eyes, guided them to a booth. Lily slid into her seat nervously. She picked up the menu, then quickly set it down and whispered, I don't have money. Alexander leaned forward, his tone gentle but firm. Don't worry about that. Tonight, you're with me. For the first time since the biker attacked her, Lily gave a small, genuine smile. She ordered soup and bread, something simple. While Alexander asked for the same. He could have asked for the most expensive dish in the city, but at that moment, he wanted nothing more than to share the same meal as her. As they ate, Alexander studied her carefully. She held her spoon carefully. Like she wasn't used to eating out. After a few minutes he asked, Lily, can you tell me about your family? Her smile faded. She hugged the toy bear tightly again, her voice dropping to a whisper. It's just me and my mom. She works a lot, but sometimes she gets sick, very sick. That's why I was outside tonight. I wanted to sell this bear so I could buy her medicine. Alexander froze. The bear she clung to wasn't just a toy, it was her lifeline, her hope. He felt something heavy inside his chest. He had spent billions on deals, luxury, and investments, yet here was a little girl who thought selling her only toy would save her mother. "Where is your mom now?" Alexander asked softly. "Ate home. She wasn't feeling well, so she stayed in bed. I didn't tell her I came outside. She would be upset if she knew I was in danger." Her words cut deeper than any boardroom confrontation ever had. Alexander leaned back in his seat, his decision already forming. "Lily, listen to me. You don't need to sell your toy bear. I'll make sure you and your mother get the help you need. That biker won't come near you again." Lily blinked up at him, confusion in her eyes. "But, why would you help me? You don't even know me." Alexander's jaw tightened, but his voice softened. "Because sometimes life puts people in our path for a reason. And tonight, you reminded me what's truly important. You showed me courage that even grown men don't have." The waitress came back with the bill. Alexander paid without a second thought, then looked at Lily. "Let's take you home. I'd like to meet your mother." They drove through quieter streets until Lily pointed at an old apartment building. The paint was peeling. The lights outside flickered, and the staircase groaned under their steps as they climbed. When they reached the small door, Lily unlocked it and led Alexander inside. The sight broke his heart. The apartment was small and run down. The furniture was worn, the walls cracked. In the corner of the room, on a thin mattress, lay a woman. She looked pale, her breathing shallow, her strength clearly drained. "Mom," Lily cried, running to her side. "I'm okay. This man helped me." The woman slowly opened her eyes. She struggled to sit up, her voice weak. Who are you?" Alexander stepped forward respectfully. "My name is Alexander. I found Lily tonight when she was in danger. She's safe now." The woman's eyes filled with tears as she held Lily close. Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done without her." Alexander looked around the room, noticing the half-empty bottles of cheap medicine on the table. He turned back to the woman, his tone gentle but steady. "You need proper medical care. Have you seen a doctor recently?" She shook her head weakly. "No, I can't afford it. I try to work when I can, but lately I've been too weak." Lily tries to help, but she's just a child. Alexander felt a deep ache in his chest. For years, he had lived in penthouses, traveled in private jets, and signed deals across continents. But none of it had prepared him for the reality in front of him. A child carrying a weight no child should ever bear. "Tomorrow," Alexander said firmly, "I will take you to the best doctor in the city. No arguments." The woman's eyes widened. Why would you do this for us?" Alexander's gaze moved from the frail woman to Lily, who sat clutching her bear, her eyes filled with hope. His voice softened. "Because your daughter reminded me tonight that money and power mean nothing, if we don't use them to protect those who need it most. And because no child should ever feel the need to sell their only toy to buy medicine." For a moment, silence filled the room. Lily hugged her bear tighter, and looked at Alexander like he was more than just a stranger. Like he was someone she could trust. Slowly, a flicker of hope replaced the fear in her young eyes. Alexander stayed for a while longer, making sure they were both settled. But when he finally left the apartment and stepped into the cool night air, his heart was restless. He had made countless decisions in his career, but none had felt as important as the one he made tonight. He looked up at the stars, his hands tightening into fists. "I've protected her once," he whispered to himself. "Now I'll protect her future." For the first time in years, Alexander felt purpose beyond wealth, beyond titles. He knew this was only the beginning of something far greater. The next morning, Alexander woke up earlier than usual. He wasn't in his office tower or surrounded by assistants delivering schedules. He was in his penthouse, staring out the window at the sunrise. But his mind wasn't on business. His thoughts stayed with Lily and her mother. He poured himself coffee but barely touched it. For years, his mornings had been the same. Review reports, prepare for meetings, watch the stock market. But today, he had only one goal. He was going to help Lily's mother. By 8 a.m., Alexander's car pulled up in front of the old apartment building. The driver opened the door, but Alexander waved him off and went up the stairs himself. He wanted to face this personally. Lily opened the door when he knocked. Her small face lit up with relief. "You came back." Alexander gave her a reassuring nod. "Of course. I promised, didn't I?" Inside, her mother tried to stand, but she was too weak. Alexander gently helped her sit on the worn chair near the table. "Don't worry," he said firmly. "I'll take you to the hospital today." At first, she resisted. "I can't accept this, you've already done too much." Alexander's eyes softened, but his tone left no room for debate. "You are Lily's mother. Helping you is helping her. Please let me do this." Tears filled her eyes, but she nodded slowly. An hour later, they arrived at the city's best hospital. Doctors and nurses immediately attended to Lily's mother after Alexander spoke with the staff. His reputation carried weight, but today, he wasn't using it for profit or status. He was using it to save a life. Lily sat in the waiting area, clutching her bear. She looked up at Alexander nervously. "Will she be okay?" Alexander crouched down so he was at her eye level. "She's in good hands now. The doctors will take care of her." Lily nodded. But she didn't let go of his sleeve. It struck him how deeply she trusted him already, despite only meeting him the night before. That trust was fragile. And he silently vowed never to break it. Hours passed. Finally, the doctor returned with news. "She's weak, but with proper treatment, she can recover. She'll need medication, rest, and follow-up visits." Relief washed over Alexander. He turned to Lily, smiling for the first time in days. "See. She's going to be okay." Lily's eyes sparkled with tears, but this time they were happy tears. She hugged him suddenly, whispering, "Thank you." Alexander froze for a moment, then gently placed his hand on her shoulder. He wasn't used to this kind of gratitude. People usually thanked him with money, contracts, or handshakes. But this child's embrace felt different. It felt real. Later, as her mother rested in the hospital room, Alexander stepped outside to make a call. His assistant Michael picked up immediately. "Sir, the board is waiting for you. We have the quarterly report today." Alexander's gaze shifted to the hospital hallway, where Lily was drawing shapes on a notepad the nurse had given her. His voice was calm but steady. "Cancel my attendance. Tell them I'll review the report tomorrow." There was a long pause on the other end. "Tomorrow, sir. That's unusual for you." Alexander's tone sharpened. "Michael, some things are more important than numbers. Handle it." He hung up, surprising even himself. For years, nothing had been more important than business. But priorities were shifting, and he didn't regret it. That evening, Lily's mother was resting peacefully. Alexander decided it was time to step outside with Lily for some fresh air. They walked through the small hospital garden. Lily skipped a little, her bear tucked under her arm. "Alexander," she asked suddenly. "Yes, Lily." She looked up at him with curious eyes. "Do you have children?" The question caught him off guard. "No, I don't." "Why not?" she pressed. He hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because I was always too busy with work. I thought I didn't have time for a family." Lily tilted her head. "But you had time for me." Her simple words cut through him. He didn't know how to respond, so he smiled faintly. "You're right." For the first time in years, Alexander wondered what his life would have been like if he had chosen differently. If he had let himself care about something other than money and success. As the sun began to set, they returned to the hospital room. Lily's mother stirred, her voice soft. "Mr. Alexander, thank you for everything. I don't know how we can repay you." Alexander shook his head. "You don't need to repay me. Just focus on getting well. That's all I ask." But deep inside, he knew this wasn't the end. He couldn't simply walk away from them after this. Something had shifted permanently inside him. That night, as Alexander drove back to his penthouse, he couldn't stop thinking about Lily's words in the garden. "You had time for me." For years, he had believed his empire defined him. But now one little girl and her sick mother had shown him something greater than power. He looked out at the city lights and whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." The following days became a new routine for Alexander. Instead of morning meetings and boardroom battles, his mornings started at the hospital. He would check on Lily's mother, speak with the doctors, and sit with Lily. Slowly, the fear that once clouded her face began to fade. One afternoon, Alexander arrived with a bag in his hand. Lily was waiting in the hallway, swinging her legs from the bench. She jumped up when she saw him. "What's in the bag?" she asked curiously. Alexander smiled. "Something for you." He handed her a box. Lily opened it and gasped. Inside was a brand new set of coloring pencils and a sketchbook. "For me?"
"Yes,"
Alexander said. "You were drawing on scraps of paper yesterday. I thought you deserved proper supplies." Her eyes lit up. "Thank you." She hugged the box like it was treasure. Then she ran to show her mother, who smiled weakly from the bed. Watching them, Alexander felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. For the first time, his wealth was being used in a way that mattered to him personally, not just in financial reports. But outside the hospital walls, the world he had built was starting to notice his absence. Michael, his assistant, called again. "Sir, the investors are restless. They've noticed you've missed several meetings. They want to know if everything is all right." Alexander's tone was calm but decisive. "Tell them the company is running fine. My focus is elsewhere for now." Michael hesitated. "Alexander, you've never stepped away like this before. They're worried about stability." "I'll address them when I'm ready," Alexander said firmly. "Not before." After the call, he leaned against the wall, thinking. For years, he had lived to please investors and build his empire. But now, their voices seemed distant compared to Lily's laughter echoing from the room. That evening, as the doctors checked Lily's mother, Alexander sat beside Lily. She was drawing a picture of the three of them. Herself, her mother, and Alexander standing together under a bright sun. He looked at it closely. "Is that me?" he asked with a smile. Lily giggled. "Yes. You're taller in real life. But I tried." Alexander chuckled softly, then grew serious. "Why did you draw me with you and your mom?" "Because you're part of us now," she said simply. The words struck him harder than he expected. He had always been an outsider, even in his own life. People admired his success but never truly knew him. Yet here was a child who, in just a few days, had drawn him into her family. Later that night, when he left the hospital, Alexander found himself driving through the city without a clear destination. His thoughts were heavy. He realized he was changing, and change always came with a cost. At a red light, he glanced at his reflection in the rearview mirror. For years he had seen the face of a businessman, sharp, controlled, untouchable. Tonight, he saw something different. He saw a man who cared. The next morning, Alexander walked into the hospital, and found Lily's mother sitting up, looking stronger. She smiled faintly when she saw him. "Mr. Alexander," she said softly, "I don't know why you've done all this for us. But I want you to know we'll never forget it." Alexander shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Just focus on recovering. That's the most important thing." But she insisted. "You've given Lily hope again. That means more than money or medicine." Her words stayed with him all day. Later, when Alexander stepped into the hallway, he found Lily waiting with her sketchbook. She showed him another drawing, this time of a tall building with flowers around it. "What's this?" he asked. "It's our new home," Lily said confidently. "When mommy gets better, we'll live somewhere nice, with windows that don't break and stairs that don't creak." Alexander's chest tightened. He wanted to promise her that dream, but he knew promises carried weight. Still, he couldn't ignore the image of her hope. That night, he made a decision. He called Michael. "Find me a small house," Alexander instructed. "Something safe, clean and comfortable. Not for me. For a mother and daughter who need it." Michael was stunned. "A house, sir." "Less," Alexander said firmly. "And do it quietly. No publicity." "Understood." When he ended the call, Alexander sat back in his chair. For the first time, he realized he wasn't just helping them survive. He was preparing to change their lives. Days passed, and Lily's mother grew stronger. The doctors finally said she could be discharged soon, though she would need ongoing care. When Lily heard the news, she danced around the room, hugging her bear tightly. Alexander stood in the corner, watching the joy on her face. He knew he had made the right choice. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lily's mother called him over. Mr. Alexander. She said, her voice steadier now. I don't know what path brought you into our lives. But I believe it wasn't by accident. You've given us more than help. You've given us a chance to believe again. Alexander looked at her quietly, then nodded. Maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe it was meant to be. When he left the hospital that night, his heart was lighter than it had been in years. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about profits, buildings, or rivals. He was thinking about Lily, her mother, and the future they deserved. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning of a journey that would change not just their lives, but his own. The hospital days soon came to an end. Lily's mother was stronger now, her face no longer pale, her steps more steady. The doctors discharged her with a smile, assuring her that with rest and proper care, she would recover fully. Alexander was there, waiting for them at the entrance. He opened the car door for Lily and her mother, and for the first time in years, he felt something like pride. Not the pride of building skyscrapers or closing billion-dollar deals, but the pride of seeing a family step into hope again. As the car drove, Lily's eyes widened when she noticed they weren't heading back to the old, broken apartment. Instead, the car stopped in front of a small but beautiful house. The garden was neat, the windows clear, the walls bright. Lily gasped. Alexander, whose house is this? Alexander looked at her gently. It's yours now. A new start for you and your mother. Her mother covered her mouth in shock. Mr. Alexander, we can't accept this. Alexander shook his head. You've already accepted something more valuable. You let me be part of your lives. This house is nothing compared to that. Please, just think of it as a gift from someone who wants to see you safe. Tears filled her eyes, and she hugged Lily tightly. Lily, unable to contain her joy, ran through the garden, laughing, her bear bouncing in her arms. For the first time, her laughter wasn't forced. It was free. Inside, the house was simple but warm. New furniture, clean walls, and space for them to live without fear. Lily ran from room to room, exploring every corner. Her mother touched the walls, almost as if making sure it was real. Alexander stood back watching them. He didn't need thanks. The happiness on their faces was more than enough. Later that evening, as they sat together in the living room, Lily curled up next to Alexander, her bear in her lap. She looked up at him with wide eyes. You know, she said softly, when that biker took my bear, I thought I had no one. But then you came. You saved me, and you saved Mommy too. Does that mean you're our hero now? Alexander's throat tightened. He had been called many things in his life. Tycoon, genius, ruthless businessman, but never hero. He placed a hand on her shoulder and smiled. No, Lily. You and your mother are the heroes. I just did what I had to do. But deep inside, he knew she was right. Not because he had saved them, but because they had saved him. They had reminded him of a truth he had forgotten. That life isn't about wealth or power, but about love, kindness, and protection. As the night grew quiet, Lily fell asleep against him, her bear tucked safely in her arms. Her mother looked at Alexander with gratitude beyond words. Mr. Alexander, she whispered. You've changed our lives forever. Alexander shook his head gently. No, you changed mine. He looked at the little girl sleeping peacefully beside him, and realized that the emptiness he had carried for years was gone. In its place was something far greater, purpose. From that night forward, Alexander was no longer just a rich CEO. He was something better, a protector, a father figure. And a man who finally understood what it meant to care. And so, the story that began with a stolen toy bear ended with a family rebuilt, hope restored, and a powerful man discovering the true meaning of wealth. And that was the story of how a rich CEO protected a little girl from a mean biker who took her toy bear, and in the process, found a new purpose in life. What did you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinion. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and support us so we can bring you more powerful and emotional stories like this. Thank you so much for giving your precious time.